Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello.
Now, we have a massive world event to get to in time regarding a certain child's game called Fortnite. We'll get there.
Scott!
I'm saying its reputation is associated...
shocked me there.
What, Fortnite player Josh Brown. That's not what he is. But I think we'll open on something that I think will resonate with more of our audience, let's say. And then I'll get back onto Fortnite, because I've got only positive things to say. But yeah, it turns out, according to this dude called Joel Emsley, not Elmsley, Emsley, who works for Infinity Ward, took to Reddit on Sunday, I think, and just sort of described, had a few sort of choice quotes in regards to the whole idea of supply boxes and loot crates and that kind of thing with Modern Warfare, and just said there's a lot of misinformation and incorrect stuff going around in regards to Modern Warfare. He said what he can say right now is that they're definitely not working on any sort of supply drop or loot box system. Functional stuff is unlocked through gameplay, and just said stay tuned, we're planning to release the info this week. But that was then also corroborated or sort of expanded upon by a regular leaker called the Gaming Revolution, who I forget what they leaked in the past, but they're known.
It's other stuff to do with loot boxes and microtransactions and stuff like that. We reported on it a few weeks ago when it was all kicking off, just kind of corroborating that people kind of like went into the files of the beta and saw that loot boxes were at one point planned, and then they kind of went to their sources and corroborated the same information.
So this Gaming Revolution Twitter, who's like, I love the state of just Twitter leaks, where it's just sort of like, it's just the Wild West going on. But Mr. Gaming Revolution, Mr. Revolution himself, said that the plan right now is that he basically did this little tweet joke about like the idea that Infinity Ward would just change the microtransactions last minute to save the game. And then there was a follow-up comment down in the actual Twitter thread, if you sort of scroll down a bit, where Mr. Revolution said that they've, according to him, Infinity Ward have literally just flipped the script. He was told that supply drops were removed last week, but his sources didn't think that they were gone, and they were just removed temporarily to prevent leaks.
Yes.
But it seems that they're just sort of all hands on deck trying to fix the biggest controversy around the game.
It's funny that, you know, the person from Infinity Ward should talk about misinformation and, you know, stuff like that when they have been so kind of vague and they haven't come forward and actually talked about what their kind of post-release plans are going to be, what the microtransaction systems are actually, you know, going to be. And we know they're going to be there in some form. You know, all Call of Duties for the past few years have had these systems in place. It's more of a matter of, you know, when rather than if with this. And I don't fully believe the fact that like loot boxes won't be in it at all. I feel like this is just sort of, you know, a way to get us to launch date where the loot boxes won't be in there, the supply drops won't be in, and then they will eventually trickle in afterwards, because then you can always just say, well, we weren't working on them at that time, but then we did work on them after launch.
It's like some weird, like, you know, legal defense, like Saul Goodman style defense, because like the whole thing where he's saying, well, we're not planning on doing this. It's like, well, yeah, you wouldn't be, but Activision would be, and it's like the whole difference between Infinity Ward and Activision. Infinity Ward's official statement on it, as far as they've put out there, is that they said that Modern Warfare's approach to loot boxes and progression will be different, and they just sort of said that it will be the game will be a direct path to content for players, which is what a video game should be.
You know, why are the barriers there to begin with?
Like I was saying to you before we came in, what state has your reputation got to? Not necessarily with Infinity Ward, but with just the general industry right now, or Activision, that you have to outline that you'll be able to play the content you've bought.
I know. I mean, this is an entirely different video that we should absolutely do at some point, just walking through all this. But when it comes to sort of Modern Warfare, I feel like the game had so much promise, Scott.
Yes.
And then
I'm still with it.
I'm still kind of with it, but at the same time, it's been mired by this controversy over and over again. And at this point, when I'm hoping to get like the official statement about what exactly they plan on doing, because now it's just kind of, it's stuff we've heard before. In the past, Activision games have sort of like come out with statements about how they're not going to have loot boxes in, how we don't plan on doing it, but then, you know, plans change.
Black Ops 4, Crash Team Racing.
Exactly, and it feels like we've just kind of got to this same cycle over and over again when someone says, yeah, we're not working on them. But it doesn't mean we're not going to be not working on them in the future. And it's just kind of, I don't know who to believe at this point, because I want to believe the people who make the game. I want to, you know, embrace what they say. I don't want to have to second guess everything. But the fact that this has happened so many times before, we're in this industry that kind of promotes this kind of messaging, you just have to second guess every single thing until you have something official and you have a sort of roadmap that they can't take back, because then they would look stupid. If they come out, you know, later on this week and they do have an official statement and they have plans for the post-release content that says, you know, we're not going to do it, this is what we're going to do instead, that would be good, because then if they do go back on that, you can't salvage it.
It's one of the weirdest and ugliest trends in the current gaming industry, that you create a game, because the fact that you can patch stuff later on means that you can release a whole version of a game at launch, like something that's going to be reviewed and talked about initially, that gets completely overhauled in the coming weeks. That was entirely what happened with Crash Team Racing and Black Ops 4. Like, I mean, the whole thing with Black Ops 4 had a whole storefront put into it later on that wasn't there initially, and like CTR, I mean, as far as CTR handles itself, a vast majority of that content, or the good stuff, is free. You can buy your way through the progression if you just want to buy Spyro or work your way towards Spyro or something like that. But that's such a horrible paradigm, or such a horrible standard to set in the industry, that you don't necessarily know that what you're buying day one will be the same day 100 or whatever. And it's like, that's the thing that like is yet to sort of really be put under the spotlight, because Konami did it with Metal Gear Solid 5 back in 2015, or just after 2015, where they changed the whole economy around the mother bases and made it so that you really kind of had to invest in the mother coins, or the hell they were called, to keep the uptick of the base that you'd invested in back when that part of the game was free. And tweaking economies like this is pretty hideous.
It is hideous. It's the thing that gets me the most. It makes me really frustrated, because this industry as a whole, not just with microtransactions, but with its approach to kind of, patching culture and pre-order culture, it hates and yet needs the people who love it the most, the people who buy in, the people who are invested in these kind of cultures and these economies, and who are in these games, no matter what. They're the people who get used and manipulated the most, because they are willing to, buy these things. They're willing to buy into like the hype. They're willing to buy into the messages, and actually put their money where their mouth is, because that's what they enjoy. These are the games they love, and it sucks to see that kind of passion and that kind of, just sort of like fan adoration for something you want to make you happy just kind of get monetized and manipulated by a greedy little company.
And it's just like you said, for the most part, and we've said this a whole bunch of times. I think I did a whole video on it at one point. But like the most loyal gamers, the most loyal people who love this medium for what it is and what they grew up on and everything, are the group of people that get abused the most in terms of like broken games on day one, broken consoles at launch, servers going down at midnight. There's all these things that stack up against the idea of being a loyalist fan to gaming overall as an industry. And this is just an even worse thing, where they've managed to manipulate the review side of it. Where even sort of like trusted, whatever your trusted outlet is that you go to for reviews, they're not being given the version of the game that you might then buy in a few weeks, or even if you did, all the sort of stuff that you had access to then gets tweaked and changed or removed or whatever.
It makes me
terrible.
Even though I've never reviewed a Call of Duty game for this site or any other site, but
Advanced Warfare.
Oh, did you actually?
Was mine.
Well, yeah, but I look back on games like Advanced Warfare and World War II and even Black Ops 4 at launch, which I really enjoyed. But when I talk about them years after the fact now, I can look back and say, oh, Scott, that was a good game, wasn't it? I had a good weekend with Call of Duty
and I have to
Warfare.
be like, not anymore, Josh.
Exactly, but I wasn't there. I wasn't one of those fans who was there for all the content drops, for all the changes. So that version of, Advanced Warfare, or more likely Black Ops 4, that people are playing now is not the edition that was played at launch. So when people like me go on YouTube and start saying how good it was, there is a dissonance between like me and the proper hardcore fans who are still playing it and are still kind of being manipulated by these practices in how the game's economy and how the game's state just shifts and changes as the years go on to make it a worse product.
I get the potential for, like, if you're at the top brass or whatever, and you're number crunching and how much money can we squeeze out of this thing, then I guess it sort of makes like really cold financial business reality sense.
I'm sure it does.
But there's only so many times you can make this gamble where people will just actively will revolt and stop buying the games. There was that whole boycott FIFA thing in regards to the Ultimate Team prices being changed on the last game. Obviously this version from FIFA 20 hasn't gone down very well. Same with the Ultimate Team stuff. And it's just like you're just seeing a bunch of companies trying to get away with as much as possible, and taking advantage of something that was initially put in place, like the patch system was initially put in place to help fix games, make them better going forward. Development times get like changed across, games get fixed after launch. There's a whole mess of problems that really came to the fore this generation that just need to go the hell away.
This is the closest I've seen any game come to repeating the same mistakes of Battlefront 2. Obviously that was the the straw that broke the camel's back, as it were, when it came to microtransactions in the form they were in back in 2017 or whatever. And I feel like for a while they kind of went away. They kind of we had our big moment, we had our big pushback, and then we kind of got used to them again, and then they've changed, and now Activision is back making the same mistakes again. It is getting the same kind of pushback from the community, and I feel like, I hope that's made the people who are making the game, listen and change the system and make it more user-friendly. but because of what we've endured in the past, you can't be sure. Like, even a few weeks ago, the rumors were they were going back and forth on whether the loot box system was going to be as it is in Black Ops 4, which is really bad, or like World War II, which is still bad because it's loot boxes, but is better than, it's been implemented in Call of Duty games since. So the fact that it's been all over the place within the past few weeks, it's going to be in, it's not going to be in, it's going to be this version, no, it's going to be this version, it's work like that. I mean, launch is in about a week's time. It's about
How do they not know?
10 days time. How do you not know? How do you not have a messaging out there? Hopefully, in a couple of days they will have something solid to tell people, but we're 10 days away from launch as it stands.
It must be infuriating if you're a developer on this side and you don't know where your team goals are. You have a different weekly meeting being told, well, we're sort of reconsidering it. We're not really, we don't know what we're going to do a few months after the fact. Because all the game's balance is one of the most important things in Call of Duty. And if any part of that is contingent on anything that you can unlock, especially if it's monetary based, then that's a huge problem. And you're going back and forward, tweaking systems, doing whatever. We saw that happen in Anthem, where like the game was trying to respond to all sorts of different bits of feedback and the company's whims and the developers' whims. And it was just a big old mess. For me, Modern Warfare is the most excited I've been for a Call of Duty game since Modern Warfare 2, and I really just want it to be just what the beta was, just wholesome Call of Duty content, all I want. And it's not hard to get that right, or it shouldn't be.
Well, this is the most disheartening thing, Scott. This is what ultimately just gets me down in the dumps, because
your goat.
Even though we talk about microtransactions and loot boxes and stuff like that on this channel all the time, I'm sick to death of talking about microtransactions and loot boxes and stuff like this on this channel all the time, because
do you want to go across the podcast channel?
I might do. Yeah, we'll do it again.
For that.
But the thing is, you get all these developers who spend, in Call of Duty's case, 3 years of their life working on a game, putting everything in it, putting blood, sweat, and tears into a video game, in different departments, whether it's multiplayer, single player, art, writing, story, characters, animation, whatever. There's a lot of effort that's gone into it, and then it comes to the weeks before launch, and you just see all of that work, all of the stuff that could be praised get completely overshadowed by business decisions and, monetization and post-launch plans, and it just, that shadow is so hard to escape. And not only does it suck for us who are actually buying the games and playing the games, it sucks from a sort of artistic standpoint, because then that becomes the discourse, that's all you talk about. That becomes, rightly so, the most pressing issue when we're overlooking the actual artistry and effort that goes into crafting other components of the games, because at that point, they are not the most pressing issue to be.
And also, like, it is just so easily avoided. Like, it is just pure greed at this point. Like, and it's so nakedly obvious. Like, I mean, the gaming as a demographic, or in terms of gaming fandom and everything, that like gamers are one of the most switched on fandoms, like receivers of content kind of thing that there is. Like, we can see what they're doing, and for the vast majority, like those numbers of people that have cottoned onto what's happening have only gotten bigger. Let's talk about something positive, just to round things out. You'll already know that Fortnite Season 10 ended because it was everywhere. It was trending all over the world last night. But I just wanted to talk about this because I love the idea of live storytelling. There's only Warcraft used to do it in like the early 2000s because you had so many people plugged into sort of a game world. You can do something, everyone stands at a certain point or whatever. But the way that the New Age stuff happens, Elite Dangerous did it, where literally one player had an alien invasion and they were just flying their ship around, all the lights went off, all the power went out, and they had to look around.
I love that.
And this ship just came above them and they were like, what the hell's going on? They weren't even streaming, I don't think, at the time, but they recorded it, uploaded it, and was like, guys, has anyone else experienced this? And obviously the latest example, one of the companies that's doing this the most is Fortnite. And so the end of Season 10 had, and I don't follow Fortnite, I don't play Fortnite, I don't even know, I used to. But with this, it had this whole thing where a rocket launched in the middle of the map, it collided with some big warp thing, and whatever it was resulted in a giant black hole, and the whole game's map just like sucked into the middle, including all the players, all in real time with about 4.2 million people watching it, which in terms of an accolade has become the most watched live event in gaming history.
That's ridiculous.
Which I love, but that's the thing. I think going forward, this will only mean more live events happen because they're brilliant.
I like this. I was watching it. You sent me the clip earlier because I knew it happened, but I didn't quite appreciate the magnitude of the sort of in-game event of what it was. And it's so cool because when it comes to sort of games as service, we think about them as titles where developers can kind of plug a smattering of new sort of missions or weapons or cosmetics in the game. But there is so much potential for them to have this kind of storytelling element where you have these shared experiences that might only happen once, and you can say, I was there for that. I was honestly, there when the map changed.
Like when I saw this, I was like, you've just created a memory for an entire generation of gamers. When they grow up, they'll remember this thing. And regardless of where you come down on Fortnite, the fact that they've made something like this to be shared with this amount of people is a humongous cultural talking point for both gaming and just pop culture in general. I love it. I love what they've done. I think it's brilliant.
It's cool. I want to see more games adopt it. I feel like, the Avengers game. It's kind of weird that I'm comparing the Avengers game that's coming out to Fortnite.
To be fair, though, it's a lifesaver.
Exactly. They keep, Square Enix keeps talking about the Avengers game game as this sort of, ongoing story where things can happen. And I want stuff like this to go down in the superhero game. Like, you're just wandering the streets. Oh God, there's a big alien invasion. Thanos is here, or something like that. I'm obviously not that big, but I want those stories and those kind of emergent kind of, storylines to just appear out of nowhere without like so much hype and so much sort of this is going to go down. Just you experiencing it in the moment, and then you have that memory forever.
That's a really good example, because you think of the way that that whatever you call that big donut ship arrives in. Oh my God, the Infinity War. Yeah. And everyone sort of responds in, it comes down, it lands in the middle of like New York or whatever, and everyone sort of responds and starts fighting and whatever. You could have that in a live service game when everyone's just playing their regular mission and a certain boss character just turns up or whatever, and everyone has to respond to it in real time. For me, that's the future of live storytelling, or that's the future of storytelling in gaming. We have so many connected spaces. Why not do more with them?
That's why Anthem to me was so disappointing, away from all of those kind of technical issues and the bugs and the cosmetics and stuff like that. The idea that you have this such a cool premise of this world that is being changed and it morphs and the environment switches, it
should have been brilliant.
That is so many, it has limitless creative possibilities, and yet we didn't see that fully realized when that was so primed for having these kind of events. It's just a shame that the game itself couldn't support it. And I feel like those are the teething problems I think we're kind of getting over. Fortnite has obviously been around for a long time now, so it's laid the foundations, become as popular as it can, so it can do something as big as this. Games like sort of Destiny 1 or Anthem and stuff, they struggled to get over the first year hump, and then they finally got to the point where they could drop expansions and stuff like that that really fleshed out the game and made it memorable. But I want to see going forward games that just come out the park, swinging as a games of service thing. I don't really like games of service, but if they do it like this and give
stories
us
as a service,
that could work as long as you don't get really greedy about it.
I know. I also just as like one sort of final thing to be sort of thankful for is that it's a massive risk for them. Like the game completely just shut down. It like everything got sucked into this big old black hole. If you go and stream Fortnite literally right now, it's apparently going to change later today. But right now the servers are just offline. It just they're online, but it just goes to a black hole. So everyone who was streaming on Twitch and YouTube and everything else just all got to see the same thing.
Yeah.
So ostensibly they just shut off their game for a day, and it's like it is a massive. Obviously it gets everybody talking, but like it is this kind of massive risky. I'm not going to say artistic, but it's a very creative idea.
It's a creative idea.
And I love the fact that they're just like, a company that big, that dependable on their biggest IP can just go, actually, we're going to try this weird story thing and just shut it off for a day.
It's cool, because depending on how much they change, it could come back, and it could be not the Fortnite people love. The map might be completely different, things might be completely changed, and that is, like you said, it's a risk, and it's a risk that I didn't expect a game as big as Fortnite to actually take.
Same.
Ever.
I was a big old fan. But yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below of something like live service games or live stories and how they could go. And also what you think of the potentiality of Activision ruining the best looking Call of Duty in quite some time. For now though, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
I'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.